All right, Friday weekend primer. Welcome in section 1904. Getting set. Padres will be on the road at the Astros. You know, those cheating Astros, one of the most loathsome organizations in all of sports. SDFC making its longest road trip ever, all way at Charlotte, coming up at 4:30. You can listen to that one on San Diego Sports 760 with the pregame show starting at 4 o'clock. Myself and Adrian Garcia Marquez. But as we get set on a Friday, we're kind of loosely structured here today in that we don't have a guest. There's some things that I feel like we've neglected during the week. Have a couple of emails that I want to read, some people that have corresponded. But I think it's a good time to say thank you to everybody that's been interacting with this podcast and interacting with us online at section1904.com. It is a website. It is a podcast. I have people every day. It seems like more and more people are asking me, and I'm sure, John, the same situation is for you. People are asking more and more like, wait a minute. What's happening? Like, what's that all about? Like, so do want to say thank you to everybody who's taken the time to do a little bit of exploring on section1904.com or to listen to some of these podcasts. You know, we do have this idea, which is a seed in the ground, and we're sprinkling a little bit of water on it and seeing what will grow. And, you know, it's you know, we're still just not even at the bud yet, you know, so we haven't even had bud break, but it's just early on. And I will say I'm very happy with some of the response that we've had from people who we will acknowledge on this episode as you get set for your weekend. But what a fun Thursday it was at Mason Aleworks in Barrio Logan, meeting Dylan from Letters to AJ. A great conversation for a full hour plus uninterrupted. Like, I just drove away, John, yesterday thinking could never do that on radio. You know, no. I just couldn't do that kind of conversation on radio for myriad reasons, but I was really glad that we had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I sent you someone, I think his name was John, great name, commented on Section 1904 on that post and said, you know, once he finished, he was like, I need to take 5 minutes and bask in the glow of that level of Padres conversation, because it's just not something we ever hear on radio. And even like, I feel like that was in the top tier of like, you know, Padres podcast conversations as well. So same, I drove home and listened to it. Partly to try and make myself better, but also because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything that was said, because Dylan was making so many really good points. Can I hit on a really quick Padres thing, actually, that I told Dylan when we were done, but I think you were busy talking to someone else. I have a friend who's a diehard, lifelong Astros fan who sent me a text the other day and said that she's rooting for the Padres this year, not the Astros. And I asked why. And for a second, I was like, oh, is this a Gurriel thing? And she replied, she likes Maldonado more than the Astros. And I was like, what? And she's like, and that's not really uncommon in Houston. She's from Houston. And she was basically trying to make the argument that Maldonado was so popular with Astros fans that they couldn't possibly root against him. So she's just going to root for whatever team he's on, and also the Astros. But I would expect, like, knowing Mike Schilt and everyone's flair for the dramatic, I would expect in the game tonight, Maldonado might get the start. He might get a standing ovation from the Astros fans. Like, that's, you know, for a guy who's kind of at the end of his career and you weren't sure if he was going to make the roster, it's interesting to think that he might be bringing fans onto the Padres fan base because of how many fans in Houston loved him. I thought that was strange. I wanted to mention it.
Yeah, actually, that is kind of cool because, you know, I think sometimes, you know, the word that's popping into my brain is perspective. You know, sometimes, you know, it's always interesting to hear somebody else's perspective. And it kind of goes back to the conversation we had with Dylan from yesterday, because, you know, I really wasn't sure what that conversation was going to be like, or what Dylan was going to be like, because I feel like he's typecast as somebody who's so data driven that there's not a lot of room for, you know, the part of the game that matters a lot, which is like the human element of this all. And, you know, sometimes people who are typecast as just being data driven, right? I'll give you an example. You know, the sporting director at SDFC, he's a guy named Tyler Heaps. And I asked what it's like watching a soccer match with Tyler Heaps. He's like, well, I'm very analytical and data driven. So everything for me, I'm like processing it. And I'm like, really? Even in football, like even in this sport? He's like, yeah, it's just the way I am, bro. So, you know, sometimes people are of that mindset. And I thought it was really interesting, you know, that he, you know, he had like multi dimensions, you know, that he also was often talking about some of the data, but he was saying, and had an appreciation for other variables. And I think that's the thing with Martin Maldonado, right? That it's really easy just to be like, well, this guy stinks. He can't hit a lick.
Yeah.
And he was on one of the worst teams and it wasn't happening for him. So this is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
But then again, people that have seen much more would tell you, that even if fandom is fickle, that they will remain fans of such and such a player just up into this point. So, I do think some of that. By the way, and you and I were just chatting before we started recording, for whatever reason, I started looking earlier today on baseballreference.com at some of the defensive metrics since we talked about it yesterday with Dylan, and the Padres catching is really good. Like Padres catching defensive metrics, Diaz has thrown out 4 out of 5. Like they are the top. You would think. I wanted to just see, how Manny gets treated by some of the defensive metrics, which are imperfect. Again, reference yesterday's section 1904. But it stood out how well the catchers are performing defensively. And, you said you saw something on Fangraphs, which highlighted this as well. So, again, I understand it's easy to be like, hey, these guys stink and I can't hit and blah, blah, blah. But, there certainly are places that you can go that will tell you that the catching situation, that the catching tandem for the Padres really has been plus.
It's funny, in the category of an actual letter to AJ, I hope AJ Preller has a chance to listen to that podcast yesterday because I think he's going to get a lot out of it. The most interesting thing to me about the 2024 and 2025 Padres is that AJ Preller isn't just zigging where everyone else is zagging. He's zigging against who he used to be, right? Like, this is a man who traded a shit ton for Austin Nola because he thought that he could have a catcher who also hit. And he was like, that would give us a lineup that is, dangerous all the way through. And it's very obvious now that they're just like, we think we can win, by doing things differently. High contact, a lot of action on the base paths, catchers who can handle a pitching staff, and also help us win that run game on the defensive side. And I don't know if you saw Diaz throw out the guy at second base the other day, but it was one of the most. It was a bounced. I don't think it was a curveball, but it was a bounced ball in the dirt that he picked out of the dirt, threw to second base, and beat the runner to second base by like a full foot. And it was one of the craziest throws I've ever seen from a catcher. And I was like, wow, like it made a little bit more sense why they like Diaz, because I was like, oh, they clearly think that they can win in the margins on the running game part of it, right? And half of that is having a lot of really fast players who are well trained in stealing bases. Shout out Manny Machado for not being fast, but having, I think, leading the team in stolen bases and being like 6 for 6. But also on the other end, just being like, good luck against our catchers. Good luck, because they're going to get you. And that's it's just cool. It's cool to see AJ learning, right? Like, we always talk about players developing. I used to say this on Padres Hot Tub. We don't talk enough about coaches developing, getting better, GMs developing and getting better. But I think last year and this year is kind of a sign that like AJ's like learning and changing his philosophies and developing himself. And that's really cool for me.
Yeah, I guess there's a reputation there that he's got a stubbornness to him because, he insisted on certain things when it came to the managerial role, or he always wanted to be surrounded, right? Some of the stuff that had been written about him is that it's always got to be a bunch of yes men around him, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think that's probably right. I said 4 out of 5. 5 stolen bases against, 4 caught stealings for Diaz. 5 stolen bases against for Maldonado, 2 caught stealing. So again, like I remember catchers who had like no caught stealings, and it's June and it's July, and so that these guys have already caught 6 base runners out of whatever that number is, 16. 6 out of 16 is, April. That's pretty good. And again, good. I also believe sometimes, catcher ERA, no, like we discussed, no stat is perfect. So, all of them need to be taken, I think, with a little pinch of salt. But, I think that's a big part. When your pitchers are comfortable, I think that they're more likely to perform in good situations. So, anyhow, yesterday I thought was just, we've done a lot of, I think we were now on a run of 10 consecutive shows, if that's right. Where we did 5 last week, 5 this week. So, this is the point of this, is to build a little bit of a rhythm here with tons of room for improvement for us And this is why, if you haven't yet, if you're new to this, because one of the other things that John and I have talked about is do we need Twitter? Like, do we need Twitter to promote this? And the answer, I think, is probably yes.
Probably yes for now.
And I don't want that to come across as strictly a bit of political commentary. I've been frustrated with Twitter for years before it found itself front and center of the political discourse. So, that's something you can go back and you could track with me, although you can't find exactly where I've said these things. Just trust me, I've said them on the radio plenty of times, that the app is almost unusable for the purposes that we need, for the purposes that I am looking for. It is almost an unusable app. And that, I think, I do think that's kind of bipartisan. The app is kind of it's shit no matter who you are, isn't it?
Stinks. It's terrible. It
is. Yeah. And like, it's just like an unusable thing. And trying to get any sort of commentary going there or any sort of interaction going on there is like, it's an impossible thing because of the people that get boosted into the timeline. And now, like, it seems like the more recent trend is, every one of these posts is like, hey, Grok, is that how you said? Hey, Grok, what's the, like, and it's like, what? Like every single post now, no matter what it is like, hey, Grok, is this true? And you're like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Like, is that what we've come to now, where we're just trusting some sort of, artificial intelligence? I don't. And anyway, that's. We probably will need it. The point, I don't know that the point is to sit here and tell you how terrible Twitter is, because most people know it. It's just whether or not we need it.
I can give you one sentence on how I currently think about Twitter, which is that for decades, people have held on to the belief that on the internet you should never read the comments. And I feel like Twitter has just become a comment section for life, right? And like, and people aren't sharing anything except for their work, and then all the replies to it are just like, we hate you, you suck, hey Grok, buy this Bitcoin, go to my OnlyFans. Like, it's just a comment section, and it's mostly filled with bots, and there's just no use for it. There's no use for it anymore.
Yeah, you definitely, whatever, where you're done with it, you're like, you walk away with the, it's not just the impression, but the actual belief that you're not interacting with human beings.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that these are actual human beings that are posting some of this stuff. And it's just like the same thing over and over again. It's like you just see the same post boosted into your timeline over and over and over again. So John and I talked about whether or not we do or don't need this. And, fact of the matter is, I have 20,000 followers on this stupid app.
Might as well.
50 of them are probably real humans. But, do I need it? Do we need it for promotion purposes? And the answer is yes. So, over the last couple of days, Steve Sands yesterday with Dylan from Letters to AJ, I put it out there on Twitter. And, I had some people saying, oh, like, I didn't know that you were still doing stuff. And we expected that. Listen, there were people for years that Marty and I would see walking around San Diego, and they'd be like, I saw somebody recently on the IB Pier. Somebody who was fishing off the IB Pier who's like, hey, I know who you are. I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. He's like, whatever happened, man? I used to love you on the Mighty 1090. I was like, yeah, I just did 5 years of radio with iHeart. But, I was still on the radio. He's like, yeah, I don't know. Once you were off 1090, I just kind of lost track of everybody. Yeah. He's like, so I understand it's, people have busy lives and families, and, not everybody's on social media. So what I'm saying is, John and I are launching something. It's called Section 1904. It will be subscriber based. We do ask, that this will be supported, and we've laid out reasons why. We believe that this is the right way for us to go about the business of trying to launch a local, owned and operated, listener-supported media company. So if you're new to it, if you've just discovered us over the last couple of days because of Steve Sands, because of Dylan from Letters to AJ, please do check us out. We plan on getting this thing up and running and talking Padres and SDFC and everything happening locally. We haven't even scratched the surface on some of the other stuff that we want to talk about, which is, living in San Diego and all the unique and fun things that come with living in San Diego, and some NBA stuff and some sports stuff and some stuff that's, that you can't talk about on radio, and just do it in a really authentic way. So, we are not saying no to sponsors, maybe to advertising. We don't want to be promoting 3-team teases for the rest of our lives.
Please.
At least I do not want to. But yesterday was a great example of what it is that we wanted to do, which is just have an uninterrupted conversation with somebody that is smart and somebody who's got great perspective and somebody that's really, really unique. And I hope you all enjoyed it. So thank you. And we do ask that you can go check us out at section1904.com.
Yeah,
all right.
we are. The fun thing, and this is just peek behind the curtain. We don't need to dig into this. We can move right along. Is that we're like 6 days away from the start of the NFL draft, which for me and you is a funny thing because everyone in sports radio is going to be talking about the NFL draft, and you and I have very little interest in covering the NFL draft because what is it? It's oh, there's a new player added to a new team that we didn't really know that much about. Now, I talked previously on I think a Bandwagon Beach about how I thought the rivalry between Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders was entertaining, but those guys are going to go in like the top 3 picks, and I'm not going to know or care about much anyone else. So we're going to find a way to either ignore that or cover it in a way that is interesting to us and probably very different from how it would have happened on radio. So, yeah, I keep telling people, I'm like, this is authentic to us. We're doing sports coverage because we love sports, and this is the way we wish it was covered. And things like yesterday and seeing so many people, tweet at us and email us. And I got some texts from friends saying like, this is what I wish sports radio could be. Is like, great. Cause that's same for us. We hope that you can replace whatever sports radio listening you were doing in the middle of the day with listening to this podcast instead, because we're trying to do it a little bit better, a little deeper, a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's not a stated goal here to try to destroy sports radio since I was just on a sports radio show earlier, but it's just that there's other ways to do it. And I think there's room for all of it. And, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for sports radio. So as I said, I had a long-term relationship with it. It's over and it's time to find the next thing. Paul, who is a longtime listener, sends me an email, found us dsmith at section1904.com. How can people email you, John, by the way?
Thank you for asking that while I was drinking coffee. JG at section1904.com.
Sorry, I didn't have the screen up.
Okay.
Paul says, great to hear you. Pleasant drive listening to Steve Sands. Always one of my favorite topics. Glad you kept golf in the rotation. Nice interview exchange with Rory and Eamon Lynch about Harry Diamond. We talked about his caddy the other day, which was so interesting. I subscribed some time ago. I'm enjoying your new venture with John. It's funny. I was visiting family in Virginia last summer when you left 760. I hadn't listened to your show during the week. Came back absolutely mystified to where you were. Living in Orange County, I'm not as tied into the community that I have so missed. It's why I enjoy what you do so much. It really makes me feel like I know what's going on and I'm part of the community. I guess that fits in with the whole Section 1904 analogy. Get down to San Diego on a decent occasion. I'll organize it so that I can drop by on one of the Barrio Logan days. Yay. Got a bottle of red wine that I want to drop off. So that's from Paul. Do appreciate that.
Can I say, I loved the part of the Sands interview where he was talking about the caddy, Harry Diamond, and he was like, that's one of the greatest golfers who ever lived. You think he's going to listen to a fucking caddy? He shouldn't be listening to a caddy. And I was like, it's so good.
He didn't, because the caddy was like, I think you should hit like 7 here. He's like, give me the 8. And like he absolutely stuck it. Like he didn't need a caddy there. He needed a buddy.
I loved that.
Yeah. Michael, this is Michael wondering if you were going to have any call-in shows or on this podcast. We met a few times in the Soccer City days. Wonder if you're still active in the wacky local media. Season ticket holder with SDFC. I love the way Mikey has the lads playing. How about you? This is from Mikey, who emails dsmith at section1904.com. Again, this is just to acknowledge that we are starting to receive email and we do want to interact with it. Michael, we're probably not going to do any like call-in stuff, but a couple of things. Number one, we do want to do a regular, semi-regular kind of Q&A where if you guys want to email us some questions or post some questions on the Discord, which we'll explain here momentarily.
Yep.
That is probably going to be the primary way that we're going to interact. We have an idea of being able to go live, whether it's just audio or whether it's video. We do have some ideas on how we're going to be able to go live when the moment calls for it. So just stay tuned as we're building this thing. Do we want to explain the Discord now?
We can. There's just a quick explanation on the site from a couple days ago, I think. I'll probably post another one in a day or two here once we get all the technical things sorted out, which I think we're very close to doing. But the Discord is going to be for anyone who's my age or older. It's like a chat room, right? It's like a bunch of different chat rooms built into this platform. You can access it on the internet. You can download the app on your computer or on your phone and access it. And it's just going to be the section, right? It's going to be all the people in section 1904. And you can go into the Padres channel and talk about the Padres. You can go into the SDFC channel and talk about SDFC. You can go into the travel channel, talk about your travel, your plans, or post pictures of where you've been. I'm sure we'll have like a wine channel at some point so people can talk wine with Darren, maybe a beer channel so they can talk beer with me. And it's just going to be a way for the section to talk to one another and to us, and for us to talk back. Because, right now it feels a little bit like we're up on a stage yelling at people, and that probably will continue as a big part of the podcast. But the community is we want everyone to be talking to us and to each other when we're not doing the podcast. So the Discord is going to be the way that we're going to attempt to do that. So look for, if you are a subscribed member, I think even the free ones are going to get an invite to this Discord server, but the free people will only be allowed to access like one channel. And then depending on your membership, you'll get access to more. But yeah, so that's coming. Look for an email from either us or Discord with more information.
Yeah, and I haven't spent a ton of time on Discord. I was part of a couple of different Discord groups. One with a podcast that I follow out of Spain called the Spanish Football Podcast, and the other one I was part of the Chavos Discord because I was a paid member of Los Chavos, the supporters group. Then with San Diego Loyal, now with SDFC, part of the Frontera SD banner. So I was in their Discord. So I'm loosely familiar with how it works, but I'll probably have a couple of old man moments, but it's pretty self-explanatory. And it's just a way to connect and banter. And, we will have some guidelines there about how others are going to get treated and how you're going to treat others. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for some healthy discourse. I'm all for a little bit of banter, but we're not there to make anybody feel uncomfortable.
Correct.
And that's why I've drifted away from a lot of these other social media channels. I mean, the reason why I got rid of a Facebook page a million years ago is like I just couldn't be at a restaurant with my wife, sitting here editing some of the racist stuff that was going on my Facebook page. So I'm just we're not gonna tolerate any of that. But it should be a fun place, and it should be a place to connect with others and hopefully that's the whole purpose of it, is that, we get it up and running and it becomes part of Section 1904. It becomes part of the community that we are creating. So We thought about a WhatsApp channel because I'm also part of some groups on WhatsApp. But I think the thing that we wanted to steer clear from, full disclosure, was on these WhatsApp groups, people's phone numbers are posted. Mm-hmm. And we're like, I don't know, like, do we put ourselves in a compromising position if somebody's phone number then is used for purposes,
harassment.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it lends itself to a level of to accountability, that you can't go on there and be a complete anonymous troll because, now we kind of know who you are. But the flip side is you never know. You can't be accountable for everybody who's going to sneak into these sort of things. So I think it's just better off for us. As much as I think that the WhatsApp channel usage is really good, I think Discord is just probably what we're going to settle on here, and hopefully people enjoy that as well, or not, or just don't. It's fine to not do that either. All right, so that's everything we got going on. Section 1904. We did just want to take a couple of minutes just to talk about all that sort of stuff because we've just been churning content, right? Dylan, Section 1904, Steve Sands, what's going on with the Padres? What's going on with SDFC? So, we do feel like we got to reset a little bit because some new people have been brought into the mix. I will be contributing to the travel portion of the Discord. Something happened to me yesterday that has never happened before. So I'm sitting here watching Champions League on Wednesday afternoon, and I'm watching Arsenal just knock out Real Madrid, which is phenomenal. And then I was paying attention to what was going on with Inter Milan and Bayern Munich, which very much impacts me as a fan with FC Barcelona playing the winner.
Yeah,
and they announced the semifinals. They announced the dates of the semifinals, and Barcelona is going to be hosting Inter Milan on April 30th in a Champions League semifinal. First leg is in Barcelona Wednesday, April 30th, and I went, Wednesday, April 30th. that sounds familiar. And then I went and checked my itinerary. I land in Barcelona at 9:00 in the morning on April 30th. And
I hope you can sleep on the plane.
though we had plans to go a little bit south, we were going to spend the first couple of days. We are going to spend the first couple of days of our trip in this little beach town south of Barcelona called Sitges, Sitges, Sitges. We're about 40 minutes outside of Barcelona, and I have a friend of mine who's a socio, who is, one of the fan ownership, the whole Barcelona structures. Maybe people don't know this. Barcelona doesn't have an owner. Like, they don't have like a John Seidler or a Jerry Jones. The club is owned by the fans, and the fans are called socios. So I have a friend who's a socio who had access to tickets. He's like, hey, I can get them, but we got to move quick. So I got two tickets to the Champions League, FC Barcelona, at home against Inter Milan on April 30th. So when I tell you that I am buzzing and over the moon about that, I've never been to a Champions League match in my life. I've been to a Europa League match. This trip, the purpose of this trip is that we're going to the Clásico, Barcelona Real Madrid, on May 11th. But to start the trip with a Champions League match and end it with a Clásico, and in between we have horseback riding and wine tasting and sightseeing and bike tours and hiking and all sorts of stuff in between. Man, this is just setting up for an amazing trip. So I will be contributing, John, not only on the sports level, but I will be contributing also on the travel level, telling you all about Sitges and Valencia and Girona and Barcelona. So it's going to be a great trip and bookend by what should be two amazing, amazing football experiences.
I have questions. While you are over there in Europe, a short-ish train ride away from Italy, is the second leg happening in Milan? Can you hit them both?
I cannot. I'm pushing my luck already.
Well, so this was my other question was, did your wife see the opportunity and negotiate something for herself?
Well, it's funny you say that. The negotiation actually is that she is going to a horseback training class camp. I'm not sure how to describe it, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, she's doing a 4-day horseback riding excursion experience. She's a lifelong horseback rider. Yeah. And she gets to ride some Phrygian horses on the beaches and in the water and do all sorts of stuff. It's like all day horseback riding. So, she's doing that. And there's probably not going to be a ton for me to do for about 3 or 4 days, except paddleboard and maybe take a couple of day trips and do a little bit of yoga and things like that. So, she's like, well, she knows that like this is a little bit of back and forth. So, she's got 4 days of that. Whereas I'm going to get a couple of days of watching some soccer. But no, it never crossed my mind to actually go to Milan. Although now that you say it, I probably will look at some flights and be like, well, what if we can kind of go real quick in and out of Valencia? But probably not. So Champions League semifinal for Barca to me is like, oh man, like I cannot believe it. I cannot believe how lucky we were. Because if this were, they play Tuesday, Wednesdays. If they got scheduled the Tuesday, it just wasn't going to happen. So
knowing you, if that's like a 1-1 at the end of the first leg, you're going to go back to looking at flights.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I would. I don't know. I mean, again, I've never, and I'm like, wow. Like, I mean, do I need to go to the Clásico now? But yes, I'm going to go to both. But it's going to be an amazing what a trip that's going to be. So I will certainly be delivering. I'm going to podcast from there. And I'm going to be posting pictures and all sorts of stuff. Maybe there will be a live stream for a Champions League semifinal for the winner to go to Munich for the final. Man, for Barcelona that hasn't won Champions League since 2015. I know for a lot of clubs, you'd say, oh, poor you guys. But still, should be an incredible, incredible experience. So super excited about that. So that happened yesterday. SDFC also yesterday, and I didn't really talk about it. I may have mentioned it. SDFC, I think this is going to be the hardest game of the year. As I've been preparing for Charlotte, and this is 4:30, that's part of it. People say, well, why is Charlotte going to be so hard? Number one, they're second in the East. Charlotte was an expansion team in 2022, so this is their 4th season. They've played 55 home games. They've lost 9 of them. They have not lost a home game this year. They're 4-0, and they have the best goal differential in Major League Soccer at home, +8. I think it is +8 or +10. I have it in my notes here somewhere. But this is a real push year for them. They've gotten better every single season. First year, they weren't bad. They had about 40 points, finished 9th just outside of the playoffs. Then they expanded the playoffs. They finished 9th. Their second year, they went into the postseason, lost in the opening round. Last year, 51 points, 5th, I think, 5th. Lost again in the postseason, first round, didn't win a playoff game. This is the year that they think top 4 or bust for us. Went out, invested in the European market. They play on turf, John. We're recording. It is the morning on Friday, and SDFC, as I was told yesterday by the head coach, Mike Ibarras, they're going to practice at Bank of America Stadium, which is the NFL stadium there. That's where Charlotte FC plays. And they're going to learn the turf on the fly. I think a big reason why Charlotte has played so well at home, why they have this great home record where, they've only lost 9 times in 55 matches and have yet to lose this year or even drop any points, is because of the turf. There's just not a lot of these turf fields around Major League Soccer anymore. And I asked Mikey about preparing for it. He's like, well, we can't. We have no place to practice. The only thing we can do is take our team to the field to practice at the actual stadium, which is probably happening right now as we're recording this, and see how everybody does. And, this is a huge adjustment. You're playing earlier in the day than you've ever played. You're playing further away than you've ever played. You're playing 3 time zones away, which has never happened before. And I know this is pretty standard stuff for other sports, but not for these guys. Not for these guys. They don't travel this much. Guys who played in Denmark never travel like this. Denmark's a pretty small country. So traveling around Denmark is probably like traveling around Southern California. It's just not that big. So, this will be a totally different experience. They left on a Thursday following a road trip to Colorado. So, there's a lot. And it's a good Charlotte team with really good players. They've invested in the squad, and they really think that this is a push year. So the turf stuff, they're mostly healthy. I think most everybody will be available outside of Boateng and Ingvartsen, who, by the way, is jogging. I did see him running. Yay. So that's good news. I mean, at least he's doing something. I
need video of him right next to Jackson Merrill, of them working out their legs quickly on some grass.
But man, I will tell you this, and I don't know that they would agree with me, but if you put a point on the table right now, I'd probably sign up for it. If I could get a point here and I could come home with a draw in this match, I think I would take it. But I'm guessing these guys are going there to try to pick up all 3 just because that's how they are and that's how they're wired.
Okay, so I have spent this morning trying to add perspective and context to San Diego FC inside my own brain. Because to this point, I have mostly watched just San Diego FC games. I occasionally will turn on the MLS 360 and watch that for a little while, but a lot of it is just trying to catch up. Who are these guys? Who are the teams? Who's good? Who's not? And I'm learning here or there, but I realized yesterday when we were having that conversation with Dylan that so much of how we talk as fans about the Padres is rooted in the stats. And I'm like, we haven't really dug into SDFC stats at all, right? We mostly just talk about the playing style, the depth, they're an expansion team, Mikey Veras, and so I decided to try and give myself the context and go how good is San Diego FC statistically right now? It was eight matches in, and what I found is they're one of the best teams in the league at scoring goals and one of the best teams in the league at preventing goals. They lead the league in assists per 90 minutes. I have a stat that I would like for you to, and I'm putting you on the spot with a totally random stat that might be meaningless. But there's a stat that San Diego FC is leading the entire league in by kind of a lot called progressive carries. Are you familiar with this stat at all?
I am. And I think, yes, go ahead.
And so, and they're 4th in the league in progressive passes. And I was like, that seems like that would tell me a lot if I knew what that meant. And I read the explanation of what it meant and it still didn't make sense to me. And I'm like, I need someone in plain English to explain this to me, because I think this, plus all the other stuff about Dos Santos has been probably a top 5 keeper in the league this year. Like, I thought he's been amazing, but he's been top 5. Also in top 5 are Real Salt Lake, who we saw. Who'd they play last week? Colorado Rapids, and the guy from Charlotte this week.
Yeah, this guy's the reigning MLS goalkeeper of the year too. This guy from Charlotte. So this is why I think this is and this is obviously through the benefit of hindsight, because I thought Galaxy was going to be really hard. Galaxy stinks. They don't have a win yet. Galaxy doesn't have a win. And Real Salt Lake, LAFC, Seattle, these are teams I think that have losing records. With the draws factored in, I'd have to look it up, but I think they all have more losses than wins currently through 8 match days, which obviously doesn't tell the whole story. But this Charlotte team is really good, and you're playing them away, and you're playing them on the turf, and they're starting to come into their own. So okay,
also the biggest crowd that they will have played in front of, I think, because their attendance numbers, at least on the Football Reference, say they get about 40,000 a game.
Yeah. Some of that's skewed. The opener was 50,000 plus, and I think they've had like 27, 30,000 since. So
how does Chicago Fire have an average attendance of 62,000? Where do they play?
Because they played Messi. Because they played Inter Miami, so they played it at the Bear Stadium.
Do they always play at the Bear Stadium, or they just did that for Messi?
No, some of these, you do have to dig a little bit into this. Usually when you see those kind of numbers, especially early on, you go, well, wait a second. I feel like they've played Miami. Because Miami and Messi will sell you 65,000 seats usually.
That's fair.
So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So to your point.
Carries.
So a couple of things here. Number one, San Diego Football Club also leads Major League Soccer in time of possession.
Yeah.
Which, if you're new to soccer, means how much time do you spend with the ball? Do your players have the ball versus the opponents having the ball? SDFC also has the most completed passes in Major League Soccer as well. And I bring that up because it's important to what John dug up this morning about progressive runs and progressive passes and progressive carries. Sometimes you can say, well, this is a possession-based team. This is a team that passes the ball a lot. And, that could still be a really boring team. Like Manchester City is oftentimes quite boring because they just pass the ball back and forth. It's that old Simpsons video. And this guy passes it to this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. And the ball's never going anywhere. The ball's just sort of in the middle of the field all the time. But that San Diego is one of the more progressive teams in the league. And the players who are the most progressive off the top of my head, Luca De La Torre, Jeppe Tverskov, and Anibal Godoy, they are moving the ball forward. So what that means, progressive, I think, is 10 yards or more. I think that's the definition. Mm-hmm. So 10 yards or more, it means that they are moving the ball from their goal towards the opponent's goal.
Like dribbling the ball 10 yards or more.
But also passing it. They have the most progressive passing. Well, there's different categories here. So
I think they're second in passes and first in the carrying.
And passing into the attacking third, passing into the opponent's 18-yard box. These are all statistics that you're going to see SDFC pretty close to the top of all the leaderboards. So it's not just possession, right? There's this great phrase, the analyst Ray Hudson, who did a lot of those Messi calls, where he would always say these ridiculous things about Messi and scream. Mm-hmm. And he had one of the great lines that, possession without penetration is masturbation.
Yes.
And, it's a great line because you can possess the ball, but what are you doing with it? Are you just kind of kicking it around? Are your center halves just kicking it back and forth to each other? You're just passing it back to the goalie. You're just passing it to one of your, and like, that's just dreadful to watch. And sometimes these teams that are possession-based just want to pass it and pass it and pass it. And you're just like, this is terrible. It's bad. SDFC is not one of those. They want to possess the ball. They want to have a ton of passes, but they want to be progressive with it. They want to go down the field. They want to get into the attacking third. They want to put pressure on the opposing team. They want to counterattack. They want to, be quick on counters and get the ball back. So, they want to do a lot of those things. It's not just, them trying to just possess it for the sake of possessing it. They possess it with purpose, which is what you're talking about here when you research that they're progressive. Luca De La Torre is one of the most progressive players. So, you look sometimes and you think, well, goals, assists, right? Those are the stats that most people gravitate towards. Does he score some goals? Does he have goal contributions? But Luke has been one of the most progressive players in Major League Soccer. So I think if you were to take that a step further and not just look at it as a team, but if you're going to start looking at some of the most progressive players in Major League Soccer, what you're going to see is you're going to find those players that I mentioned here. I think Chris McVay is one of the more progressive players as well. So you're going to find players from SDFC who don't just pass the ball a lot, who don't just possess the ball a lot, but who also move the ball 10 plus yards at a time, either receiving these passes. Dreyer's a guy who gets it up the field a ton. They come back, they get it, and then they move it forward. They pass it between the lines really well. So, there's purpose to what they're doing. And as Mikey reminded me yesterday, he's like, dude, we're 8 games into this. Like,
yeah,
we're still learning. Because I asked him a little bit about playing out of the back and, some of the mistakes, some of the giveaways that we've seen last week in Colorado, even against Seattle. Late in that game, he's like, we're still learning. He's like, we are still learning. I still have to drill into these guys that this is the style that we are going to play with, and we are not going to change it. And if we make mistakes, we make mistakes, but it's going to make us better in the long run. Because, yes, we're trying to win these games. Yes, winning is important, but making sure that everybody knows that we are about this style is what SDFC is all about. And I was like, cool. I like that. I dig it. And I thought it was really good. I was like, well, don't you ever just want your guys just to kick it out of there, just to get it out of harm's way? He's like, maybe someday, but not today. He's like, today and right now, we're still a club that is implementing a style and teaching a style. And until we are have that inside and out, this is the way we're going to do it. And we're willing to put up with the mistakes because we feel like it's part of a bigger purpose for us as a club.
Well, and the other part is like, you have a finite resource in time, right? You only have so much time. And kicking the ball out of the back to the other side of the field might be a wasted opportunity to put together a possession that drives the full length of the field and gets a good shot.
Right.
And this stat also popped out to me. Can you guess, out of the 30 teams in MLS?
30.
Out of the 30 teams, 2 stats. First one, where do you think San Diego FC ranks in number of shots per 90 minutes? Not shots on target, just shots per 90 minutes.
Let's see. I feel like I should know this because it's one of the million stats that I look up here every week. Shots per 90. Overall shots,
You can give me shots on target too. They're roughly the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're somewhere in the top 10.
So they're 7th in shots per 90. They're 8th in shots on target per 90. But they are 2nd in goals per shot.
So they take good shots.
They only take good shots. There's only one team ahead of them, and just barely, basically getting a goal. I think I'm reading this right. Like 15% of the time they take a shot. Do you want to guess who that is? Who's ahead of them?
I'm going to guess Columbus.
No, I'll give you a clue. Michael Jordan plays for them, except the soccer version.
Who?
Inter Miami.
Oh, okay, got
Messi.
it. Yeah.
Messi.
Miami takes a bunch. I mean, that's.
But they're scoring a goal 15% of the time they take a shot. San Diego's scoring a goal 14% of the time they take a shot. Like, they only take good shots, and they looking at the numbers, they pass pretty much more than anybody. Yep. But as you were explaining, purposefully. And even though they're one of the best teams in terms of goals scored, they don't have one guy who has like 6 goals, right? Like Anders Dreyer still leads the team in goals scored with 3, I think, which is one of the lower in the league in terms of like a team's leading scorer. So they really spread it out. So you can tell just by looking at some of these stats, you get an idea of how they're playing. They take control of the ball. They never waste a possession. They don't care who scores. And like, they're always moving towards the goal. But they will pass up a good shot for a great shot, which is the sign of a great team, a well-coached team, no matter what sport you're really playing. So I liked this. This gave me a lot of context because I was like, is San Diego FC really good? Or is it just that I'm not watching anybody else and I haven't watched any MLS, and like in the vacuum of San Diego, they're really good? And I looked at this like, no, they're one of the 5 best teams in the league. I think they're really good.
Yeah, they are good. And again, Mikey had to remind me yesterday because, I get a couple of minutes with him alone because we're doing the broadcast, so it's just a chance for me to say, hey, what can I look for? What can we, it's pretty standard stuff for broadcasters to have this kind of access. And, I talked a little bit about, some of the like 2 of the goals that they gave away. He's like, we made a couple of mistakes. Yeah. He's like, we got to clean it up. Like, we do have to clean that sort of stuff up. He's like, 6 times we did get it out of the back. He's like, 2 times, like we we gave it away in, tough areas, and it led to goals. He's like, but 6 times we got it out of the back, that we played it out successfully the way we planned to do it. He's like, now we didn't convert them into goals, so it goes unnoticed that we got punished a little bit more than we got rewarded for how we played. But we were happy that we were able to get it out as many times as we did. What we just have to clean up, and it is something that we need to clean up, is, just us in those kind of situations where we gave it away. But again, like he reminded me, he's like, we're 8 games into this. Like, we've got 26 regular season games to go. He's
actually,
like,
last night I was hanging out with a group of dads from the neighborhood. We can talk about this in a minute, but I was talking to one of the dads that I know is a big Padres fan, and he's like, team's 15-4 now, right? I was like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, I was getting really excited about that the other day. And then I talked to someone, and at the point they had played, I think 16 games. So they were probably like 13-3. And he's like, I was talking to someone, and the guy said, if they were in the NFL, they'd be 1-0. And in terms of the percentage of the season, right? And I was like, yeah, now it's, they're game and a half in. So 1-0, 2-0. How many times have you seen an NFL team start the season 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, and then the season just collapse from under them, right? Like, just because San Diego FC is playing like a top 5 team at 25% of the way through the season, this is a team who looks really good, but they're 3-1. We've seen teams like that in the NFL collapse all the time. We've also seen some of them go on and have great seasons. So none of this really works as a good predictor of what's going to come in the future, but it's a good start for both teams.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't object to anybody who wants to point out that the start that the Padres have had, only in like 84, 98. But, there's a flip side of that too, which is, I remember 2021, some of those playoff projections, I do remember it being August, where you have 4 months of evidence. And in 2021, I do remember this exactly. I have it screenshot somewhere, that the Padres, according to Fangraphs, had a 91.5% chance of going to the playoffs.
Jesus Christ.
And totally collapsed in August and September. So, you just don't know. I mean, that's the thing. Like, you just don't. But I do think the thing that is different about SDFC is, what Mikey keeps saying, which is, we are learning. Like, we are still learning. We were not a club 4 months ago.
That's
the Padres are coming off a 93 win season, and the majority of the squad is back. You've had a couple of changes here or there, and maybe it's an upgrade or maybe it's not over a long enough timeline. He's like, we were not a club 4 months ago. This club arrived in January 11th was the report date, and it's April 18th. So, these guys didn't even know each other's names 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And yet, here they are doing things that really are catching your eye. And, they're not afraid to say it. There's a ton of room for improvement. Mikey's like, I don't even know that we played better than like 60 minutes a game. He's like, we've got a long way to go. But, I think that sort of stuff is, it's important, and I just think it's going to be hard. It's like their body clock. I was talking to him about the body clock. Like, how do you get your body clock adjusted? He's like, yeah, well, we have some stuff for these players, because their bodies are going to be different. It's like, did you adjust their schedule during the week? He's like, never going to do that. Always going to keep them on the same schedule when we're here at home, because most of our games are on the West Coast. But, it doesn't sound like much to play it at 4:30 instead of 7:30, but it is different. It just is a different thing. And it is different to travel all the way across the country when you're not used to it, when you haven't done it before, right? Like, so, all these things are new, like they are different. And I hope they go in there and they win. I do. And I think they have an opportunity because of their wingers. And right now, Charlotte is a little bit weak with their fullbacks, their defensive players. So maybe Chucky and Dreyer can go in there and make a little bit of a mess, and it could become kind of a bonkers kind of game. I don't think they're going to lose, but I just think it's going to be hard for a lot of reasons. So this would be a really, really impressive game to go in there and pull a result from.
Just real quick, and then I want to touch on NBA playoffs if we can. I remember when we worked at Mighty 1090, I remember talking to Joe Tatino because he was traveling to an away Galaxy game, and he told me, I think I was just hanging out in his office. He's like, you want to know the key to never getting jet lag? I was like, sure. He goes, never change the time that you live on.
Right.
And I was like, what? And he was like, if I go to the East Coast, he goes, I wake up at 6 a.m. every day. He goes, if I go to the East Coast, I wake up at 3. He goes, if I'm going to bed at 9 here, I'm going to bed at 6 there. I don't care. He goes, I live by my clock, not the clock of like everyone else, because I'm only going to be there for a day or two. And then I'm coming right back. Because if you never change your clock, you never have to deal with the jet lag. And I don't know if that's totally true, but I wonder if that's like part of it. Like, I think he actually told me like Bruce Arena was a person who recommended that he do this. And so I wonder if that's kind of what they're doing, of just going like, hey, let's just pretend it's 7 o'clock, even if it says it's 4:30.
Okay. I'm willing to buy it. You know, Joe's been around this league since its inception. So if he's getting information from Bruce Arena, who am I to disagree with
I think
that?
he said he got it from Bruce Arena.
So you were hanging out with the neighborhood dads last night, huh?
Yeah, I got roped into a social gathering that was, there's a K1 racetrack near my house. You know what K1 is?
Yeah, there's one of them in right by Mason Ale House in Barrio Logan.
Is there really? So, yeah, it's basically an indoor go-kart racetrack for adults.
Yeah.
And all the dads in the neighborhood, we picked a night, we reserved it. We were there for like 3 hours racing in these go-karts. And man, guys get competitive in situations like that. Like we walk in, everyone's just joking. And like by the end, there's like fights you got to break up and everything. But it was one of those really funny things. So you do 12 laps. Each lap, depending on how fast you're going, is roughly 30 seconds. So 6 minutes on the track, right? And we raced 3 times, so about 18, 19 minutes of total racing. My body is so sore today. Every time I finished a race, I had to like shake off my hands because they were so sore from how tight I had to grip the wheel. And like my forearms are sore today. What is this like? It's not, what's the muscle that's like on the back of your shoulders? That one hurts like hell for me today. I don't know what that is. The lat is
traps.
The traps, I guess. My traps hurt so bad. But yeah, it was very funny to feel old as shit last night and this morning with how much my body couldn't handle racing a go-kart for like 20 minutes. But it was one of those things because, you know, obviously they're into the race culture. And so they got like NASCAR, hoods around, and there's like a NASCAR parked by the front door. And you're just like, man, those guys do that shit for hours.
Yeah.
For hours.
Dude, they're real athletes. You know, I have a real
brutal
appreciation.
sport.
You know, a friend of mine who I used to have on the radio all the time, Sean Kelly, is the official statistician for Formula One. So he travels all over the world with F1. And, you know, I remember trying to get K1 as a sponsor of a segment on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be a ton of fun for us also to go out there and just race around with a bunch of listeners, which would be
Hey, that's not an idea we got to throw in the trash, Darren. I like this.
Yeah, I mean, I got the cards for the people there for the K1 Speedway, which is, you know, right there on Harbor Drive. But yeah, like I'm with you 1,000%. Like, you know, when Formula One went to Miami, you know, they had, I don't remember which driver it was, but they had Tyreek Hill and one of the drivers, right? I want to say it was like Lando Norris or something.
I vaguely remember this.
And they were testing their hand-eye coordination, right? They were doing that drill.
Oh,
where
the
they
thing
just
where the things drop and you got to catch them before they hit the ground.
Yeah, and this is Tyreek Hill, right? Arguably, you know, if not the best wide receiver, one of the top 2 or 3 or 4 best wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah.
A headache, but a really, really talented wide receiver.
Yeah.
And whoever the Formula One driver was, and people could probably look this up if they chose to, absolutely like ran circles around him in terms of the hand-eye coordination drill. Like it was a total mismatch how quickly, you know, these guys know how to respond to stuff. And like you said, just because a couple of middle-aged men go ride around at the K1 Speedway and their backs hurt the next day is probably more commentary on us than it is on Formula One drivers. But it is a physically demanding sport.
It's brutal.
When you have to concentrate and you're operating at speeds of 180 miles per hour to 200 miles per hour, and you are in charge of this piece of machinery, it is, I have such admiration for those guys. I know people think, well, is it really the driver or is it the car? And you know, it's probably a bit of both. But take nothing away from those drivers. Like you said, you can go run out there to K1 Speedway all you want. You show up the next day, like, I need Advil. But, you know, like these guys go out there and do that. And you talk about travel. These guys travel all over the world. You know, they're going from continent to continent here, racing the Formula One cars. So I'm with you on that one. I did it too. And I woke up the next day. I was like, why am I so sore?
If I had to do that for like a 2-hour long race, I think I would just die at some point. I would just quit. I'd be like, my body can't do this anymore. And it's like, it's funny because, there's the old standard, especially with NASCAR. Like, oh, well, I can turn left. I turn left in my car all the time. All they're doing is turning left. And then you get in a little fucking go-kart that probably goes like 35 miles an hour, but it feels real fast. And you start realizing that like turning that thing while still trying to go fast, like you don't slow down when you go into a turn, really. You let off the gas a little bit. That's hard, man. You're working against the momentum of the car. And it's like, it's just that tiny, tiny little pinhole peek into like what a race car driver's life is. And you're just like, man, that's so much harder than I thought that was.
Yeah. All right. I know we're kind of drifting here. Do we got a couple of minutes on NBA?
Let's do a couple minutes on NBA just because
because you got the Mavs tonight.
The play-in finishes tonight. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then the playoffs start tomorrow. The play-in is terrible. It's just terrible. It's
liked it 2 days ago.
Yes, but it also it forces a national audience to watch some of the worst NBA teams play basketball against one another. And like the Kings just rolled over, let the Mavericks have it. The Hawks were terrible. The Bulls were terrible. There was a lot of bad basketball, but hopefully starting tomorrow, the bad basketball is over. I will watch Mavericks Grizzlies tonight. I will probably root for the Grizzlies. I will watch Heat Hawks and no, not Heat Hawks. Did the Hawks win that game? Or is the NBA.com wrong? I thought the Magic blew them out.
Yeah, but they live to fight another day, right?
Oh, that's right. So the Magic move on to play the Celtics. That's right. And then the Hawks play the Heat to see who takes on the Cavaliers, who gets blown out by the Cavaliers. The play-in stuff is whatever. Like the Thunder are going to blow out whoever ends up being the 8 seed. The Cavs are going to blow out whoever ends up being the 8 seed. I want to just quickly go through the let's call it 6 other playoff series. Maybe make some picks and talk about which ones are actually going to be like really good and which ones aren't. But very quickly, I hate the way that people pick NBA playoff series. I hate the fact that you pick a winner and then the number of games you think it's going to take. It feels like fucking hedging. Like when people are like, oh, I'm going to pick Lakers in 7, and then the Lakers lose in 7, and they're like, well, I was real close. Like, no, just pick a team and move on. Like, it's cowardly hedging bullshit. But even in the first round of the NBA playoffs, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 series that I'm going to expect to be very, very, very close, entertaining, good basketball between good basketball teams. And that's very exciting to me because, Darren, and I know like Champions League and whatever can kind of play into this, but there's really no other sport where you don't play series in the regular season, but when you get to the playoffs, you play series. Like baseball, they play series all year long, right? But it's I mean, I guess hockey. But the reason that playoff basketball is so much different than regular season basketball is you don't get a chance to like play a team, learn what they're trying to do, and then make adjustments to try and stop them the next game. And then you do this, and then they do it to you the next game. And it's like these series turn into just a bunch of adjustments, and a lot of time the team that makes the better adjustments with the better coaching wins. And that's my favorite part of basketball. So
yeah, I'm with you too. I also like that. When you're playing a team for the 3rd or 4th consecutive game, you get sick and tired of the same guy elbowing you in the fucking neck.
Exactly.
And it's like, you're like, I've really gotten tired of this guy, which is why, these dudes are more willing to throw down during postseason series sometimes than they are during the regular season. It's like, whatever, let's get through the game. Maybe we got some plans afterwards or whatever. But like I love that about that. Like the Clippers and Nuggets are a great example. These two teams will be so sick of each other by next weekend.
They're already sick of each other.
That like it just will be so worth watching because you just get tired of the same guy sticking his kneeing you in the hamstring and elbowing you in the back. Like it is a great thing to watch. And I love that they just are going back and forth like this. Playoff basketball is truly one of the best. It is just one of the best. I know it goes on forever, but it really is one of the best sporting events that you can find.
I also love that, like maybe the series I'm most excited for is the 2-7 Rockets Warriors series because they met like a week or two ago and played each other really, really hard. And then Ime Udoka basically trash talked the Warriors afterwards. So they were like crying little babies. So there's already a little heat there.
Dylan Brooks, by the way, back into the mix.
Always. I mean, that guy's an instigator. And not to mention Jimmy Butler never shies away from a fight, nor does Draymond Green. Like, if we should do this, let's each pick a side between the Rockets Warrior series and the Knicks Pistons series. Each one of us picks one, and whichever one of those series there is a fist fight or a punch thrown wins. Because I think that it's actually more likely that a punch is thrown in Knicks Pistons, but I would not be the least bit surprised if Draymond Green took a swing at Dylan Brooks in that series. Which one do you want?
Well, even if he doesn't take a swing, like, there's probably a prop bet out there somewhere that you can bet on Draymond Green being suspended.
Yeah, kicking someone in the balls, getting suspended for something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you on the next group chat that we are all advocating for PJ Tucker to take somebody out on Detroit.
So, is he on the Knicks now? He is on the Knicks now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's who we have nominated. We have designated PJ Tucker to go out there and start some shit against the Pistons.
Because if he gets suspended, it doesn't really hurt the team much at all.
Right. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I can probably scroll through the text and figure out, I forgot which player exactly we want him to go out there and attack, but we definitely have nominated him to be that guy. So I will say, just because it's Dylan Brooks and it's on one side and it's Draymond on the other, I think it's probably more likely between Rockets and Warriors.
It feels very likely. It feels very, very likely. But anyway, Rockets Warriors is fun for those, like the angry reasons, but also the basketball reasons. The Rockets are really good, but they're really young. The Warriors are really good, but really small, but just a bunch of veterans who win in the playoffs, and that matters. Lakers Timberwolves is so interesting to me. I guess Gobert against Luka and LeBron is a really interesting matchup for both sides. Nuggets and Clippers. I mean, you know me, I'm all aboard the Clippers bandwagon. That series might literally come down to who's healthy at the end of it, Jamal Murray or Kawhi Leonard. I don't know why. I just want to bet on Kawhi Leonard this time. Celtics Magic does nothing for me. That's the one that I was like, that's boring. Like I like the Magic, but they're boring. I hate the Celtics, but they're going to win. I hate that series. And then Pacers Bucks, like this is the series that last season, they got into the fight at the whole in-season tournament before it was called the NBA Cup. And then they just hated each other and they were sniping at each other. And it's just, there's some bad blood there between the Pacers and Bucks. And not to mention the Bucks are like, I don't know, man, if we lose in the first round, this Dame thing is going to get, we're going to get laughed at forever for doing this. So that's got something to it. And then, Knicks Pistons, like, it again, the Knicks have to prove, Tibbs has to prove that the way he coaches, when he's zigging when everyone else is zagging, matters. And the Pistons, they're a good team and they don't back down from anyone, and they kind of like to fight, and they're pretty well coached. Lot of really interesting basketball this weekend. I'm going to be watching so much basketball this weekend. My mother-in-law's in town this weekend, which I know you don't have kids, so you don't get it, but like parenting is kind of your second job at all times. And when my mother-in-law comes to town, that job is taken from me. Like, it's like I go on vacation. I got nothing to do. I don't see my kid for like days at a time because she's just playing with her Nana. They're doing Barbies. They're going on adventures. So I basically get the weekend off to do whatever the hell I want. So I'll be going for
9 a.m. tomorrow. You're going to be in front of the television watching from tonight through the weekend NBA. Yeah, the official. I just looked it up. PJ Tucker should just punch Cade Cunningham in the face in the first quarter, set the tone. That's from the next group chat here. So we're all in.
Hey, if that happens, I guarantee you. Is Isaiah Stewart still on the Pistons bench? I think he is. One of my favorite nicknames in all of sports, Beef Stew. Just a big, muscular, angry guy who will have beef with anyone. If someone punches Cade Cunningham in the face, he will choke Jalen Brunson until someone drags him off of him. Like, that's, again, I feel like that's the series that's gonna get dirty.
Yeah, I mean, if not, just show a bunch of old highlights from the 90s, with the bad boy Pistons and the New York Knicks and the way they played and how aggressive they both were. Let's just like watch that. I hope they just put us in the Wayback Machine and show us a bunch of highlights from the 90s when these two teams would fist fight all the time.
Right. Right. Have Charles Oakley do the pregame speech before game one and just be like, hey, man, if you're losing the game, just start beating them up. You'll be fine.
Yeah. And Bill Laimbeer on the other side. Yeah. Bill Laimbeer, Charles Oakley, all that sort of stuff. I sat next to Bill Laimbeer up at Wine Country in Napa once. I was like, this is Bill Laimbeer. I was like, I hated him too. I was like, oh, man.
Someone
Should
the
I
other
ask him
day,
for a picture? Like it's so weird when you hate a guy so much because you just watch it through the lens of sports, and then you're like, you have a chance to meet him. You're like, oh, I wonder if I could take a picture with Bill Laimbeer.
Someone the other day described Bill Laimbeer to me as the original stretch five, and I got really mad because I don't think I can disprove that. He was like one of the first centers who was like, I'm not great in the post, so I'll shoot threes and throw elbows. And it's like, he might have did Bill Laimbeer change the game of basketball? I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I'm on the Knicks page. What Stephen A thinks could happen if the Knicks don't beat the Pistons. I'm not even going to click on that.
Hey, you were the one saying, Mike Malone. Mike Malone will look real good in Knicks.
I'm just saying, NBA winning coaches are being fired a lot.
Budenholzer.
That's all I'm saying.
I know.
So, I have no expectation beyond the Pistons, but I think at least I think somebody has to talk about it here. A lot of pressure on Tibbs and Bridges. They gave up a lot for Bridges.
They gave up like 6 picks, right?
They gave up a lot of first round picks for Bridges here. So, the season's not been bad, but I don't know that it's justified the amount of investment made in him. But, it'd be nice to see him. And he's done a lot. I mean, I know I think he has more minutes than anybody in the NBA.
He never missed the game. I don't think he's missed a game since high school or something like that. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. And Tim's asked him to guard everybody out on the wing all the time. So, he's asked to do a bunch of stuff, and maybe I'm being a little bit unfair, but when you make these kind of investments to bring in Towns and bring in Bridges and your Tibbs, you're expected to do something beyond make it out of the first round every once in a while. I know it's been a shitty 2 decades for this club, but still, it's a lot of investment made in it. So anyhow, should be a ton of fun. And we're not doing picks or anything, are we? I don't feel like I'm qualified to do that. Anything you feel really strongly about?
Anything that I feel really strongly about. The Celtics, Cavs, and Thunder will all move ahead quite easily. I'm really interested to see what playoff Lakers look like. Really interested, but I don't feel strongly about it. I'm just really interested by it. No, not really. Except I think the Clippers blow the hell out of the Nuggets if Kawhi stays healthy. Blow them out. All right. Well, have a good weekend, everybody. We'll do it again on Monday. We'll have a schedule set up for you in terms of when we may or may not be at Mason Aleworks in Barrio Logan. We thank them for their hospitality yesterday. If you missed any of the shows from this week, if you're just new to us and just discovering us, earlier, Dylan from Letters to AJ and all the stuff, you can find it at section1904.com. Plus, John's done a little bit of writing. We'll get to that at some point, I am sure. I will be on the call this weekend, Adrian Garcia Marquez and myself at 4 o'clock on 760 in the iHeartRadio app. So looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good game. I do think it's going to be a good game. It's going to be hard, but that's what it's all about. This is what everybody signed up for. So thank you for all. If they win that game, Darren, that might be their biggest win of the entire season.
I think so. And it's, I keep thinking about it too. And it's the most important one because it's the next one, right? Like Mike McCoy would say. But it really is a good team. Like there was just no way. It was so important to go into LA and beat Galaxy in that opener because it was such a tone setter.
But they stink now. So you can't take as much from it.
Yeah. But like it's still, it shouldn't take away from how exciting that was.
Right.
Nor should LAFC or Seattle's current status take away from those results. But this is like I said, they're really good on that turf. Mikey even told me, he's like, normally I know who my lineup is on Friday mornings. He's like, I'm not going to know until after I watch him practice during the afternoon. He's like, so I'm not going to know who my starting 11 is until Friday night. And it has nothing to do with availability. He just needs to see the way these guys are going to practice on this turf before he will finalize who's going to start tomorrow, which I thought was such an interesting thing to say. So, it's just a totally different experience and it's the first. So, it makes it a ton of fun to look forward to. But we'll be on the air tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So hopefully people driving around can listen to us. And they're hosting some sort of huge block party too. Check their social media channels to find out what the block party situation is here for San Diego Football Club. But been a great week. Thank you all for the support. And we will do it again next week.